Is there another candidate? Oh, y'all just talking. Okay. I thought you guys were telling me there's another candidate coming in. Sorry, I was in your business. So we have two candidates tonight for our commissioner. So thank you, you both for coming out and sharing your time with us and with the community. And so we have 2 minutes for you to introduce yourself and share a little bit about who you are, what your vision and your mission is. So do we want to start?
Good evening, everyone. And first of all, let me thank you so much to the NAACP and my good friend Khalif Shabazz and all of the members. Thank you so much for your presence and your patience tonight and your participation in the body politic. It's important. For those that may not know me, my name is Collins Days. I'm a resident of Atlantic City, a pastor of Second Baptist Church here in Atlantic City. Come November 1st, I'll be here for 31 years. And for all of the 31 years, I have participated in working for the betterment of Atlantic City and Atlantic County. I have always marshaled the cause of the people, especially those who don't have a voice, who are not represented. And I want to continue to do the same work I've always done. I've done a lot of work with housing development. I led the Atlantic City Long-Term Recovery Group after Superstorm Sandy. We helped over 8,000 residents in Atlantic City. We rebuilt or remodeled over 150 houses in Atlantic City. We've done senior housing. We've also worked for many, many years for those who are addicted, as well as for those who are homeless. We know there's a tremendous homeless problem in Atlantic City and Atlantic County. I've always worked toward getting housing the homeless, and we'll continue to do that, as well as work toward economic development. The mayor has a great vision for Atlantic City. We have the same vision for the county in accountability for taxes and accountability for the budget.
Hello. Good evening, and thank you to the NAACP for having us here. I'm thrilled to be here with my running mate, and hopefully working together. Reverend Collins Days. My name is Dr. Victoria Dulcimore. I'm born in Atlantic City. My family lived in Atlantic City. My mother was an RN in Atlantic City Hospital. My father had many businesses here in Atlantic City, and my grandfather had a shoemaker shop for over 50 years here in Atlantic City. I am a product of the public school system here in Atlantic County, and I eventually went to college and to graduate school in Louisiana, and then I moved out to Los Angeles, where I spent 20 years working as a film composer. My background is in music. I have a bachelor's and a master's of fine arts in composition, and then I got into higher education and worked at Pepperdine University for 10 years, and I also earned my MBA. And when I moved back here, I actually moved to Connecticut and worked in higher education at the University of New Haven. I worked as administrator, managing executive MBA programs. I had a lot of responsibility with budgets, negotiating contracts, working with vendors, not only in recruitment, but as an external position as well as a revenue generator. But when I moved back to New Jersey to raise my family, about 10 years ago, I started volunteering with my father and learned about some of the issues, in particular with the food bank. I decided to get involved, and with the current administration, with the last election, I felt that maybe I should learn more and see what I could contribute with my experience. And when I learned about so many of the inequities, especially just on the commission in general, we need more equity in terms of representation on the Democratic side and have another voice. So that's why I felt compelled to run for Commissioner at Large in Atlantic County. Thank you.
Thank you both. And you both touched on a very important topic. Actually, before I came here, I run a life expectancy group with young men in Atlantic County, and we had a young man who just received custody of his 3 children, but did not have any food. Received the good news of getting the custody that he was looking for, but it happened so quickly he was not prepared, and he didn't know where to go. Luckily, unfortunately, we were able to connect him, but that's just one person of the many facing food insecurity. If you both can speak to your plan, your vision, your mission around how to solve for food insecurity in Atlantic County.
Thank you. You know, it's very interesting. Food insecurity has been one of the things that we have worked on, that we are all concerned about. And we know we live in a food desert. We live in 48 blocks. It's about 98 corner stores in 48 blocks. And we know the kind of food that they receive. We know how it impacts our health. Just today, and for the last 5 years, we've been working on a documentary dealing with food insecurity for Atlantic City being a food desert. The mayor has done put so much effort in getting a supermarket here. And we've got to continue that work. We've got to continue the effort. We've got to put monies to that. We have to do it. Our community deserves it. We live in an urban city, and we have to go out of our city to shop, to get wholesome, fresh food. And so we'll work with the county, the ACIA, to make sure to add dollars to all the work that the mayor's doing to make sure that in Atlantic City we have a supermarket to make sure that we can have decent food like all the other communities.
Thank you. Dr. Dosimo?
Well, we're all feeling the crunch in terms of how prices are rising at the grocery store. So that puts a lot of pressure on our South Jersey Food Bank. Just in the 6 months, $26 million has been cut from the food bank, and that doesn't even include the SNAP, which is coming. This is something that is near and dear to my heart, as my father began putting together food drives and to demonstrate to others how easy it is to do this. And I could not believe, once I started helping him, the food insecurity and how much it really is a crisis, and not just this year, but for many years since I moved back to this area. So I would like to work with them and come up with creative ways of working with other affiliates and food chains and grocery stores to expand. And also we have a wonderful group of people who are promoting within the schools how to cultivate, not saying we could all grow food, but how to gain access to that and how to work with some of our local farms. And we're called the Garden State for a reason. So we just have to go outside, for example, to Hamilton and figure out ways that we can work with some of the farmers and be able to have better distribution, better access, and better support and protect the county from some of these cuts that are coming to the food banks that people so desperately need, especially now.
Thank you. What steps do you believe you both will take to ensure transparency and accountability when it comes to county government decisions? Can we start with you, Dr. Dosey-Moore?
Well, I think that's extremely important. And like I said in my opening statement, one of the reasons why I felt compelled to run was that there really wasn't an equal collaboration or representation on both sides. And I think that begins with leading by understanding your constituents. Now, at large, you are responsible for all the communities, all the municipalities in the county. And that's a big lift. But I also believe it's incumbent upon everyone that's on the commission to be able to understand the needs, the viewpoints of everyone in their communities, whether they're just managing one area or the entire county. My background in higher education provided me with a lot of that training and experience because I managed fairly large budgets I had the responsibility of negotiating contracts with outside vendors, and every year I would revisit those contracts to make sure that I was doing everything I could in deference to our budget. Now, I had a revenue responsibility, but at the same time, I wanted to make sure that I was transparent with our budget and sharing information and making sure that we were able to, hit the bottom line at the end of the day. I think more collaboration is what's important in representation on the commission.
I have the wonderful privilege of filling the unexpired term of our good friend Ernest Corsi. And one thing we can say, there's only eight Republicans, one Democrat that Corsi represented us well. And he was strategic in making sure he was on all the most important committees. And I'm thankful that the same committees that he served on, I served on. And that's where the transparency come in, the representation come in. Not in the commission vote when we all come together, but it's in those committees, because that's when the rubber meets the road. And I'm grateful to serve, and that's where you need to be transparent, let people know what the real issues are, where the money's really going, who the money's going to, and what works best for the entire county. District 1 is Atlantic City, West Atlantic City, Benton, Margate, and Longport. All of those have particular specific needs, but I'm looking for working and making sure that everybody knows what's going on in the county.
Thank you. And Commissioner Days, and I apologize for not starting with that. Commissioner Reverend Days, this question's for you. How do you prioritize short-term projects at the county level with long-term projects? Because we know many people, they like to see the long-term projects completed quickly and don't really care for the short ones taking longer. So how do you prioritize, those two things?
Just that by that way, you prioritize them based on the length, the money it's going to take, the vision, and I think all the short-term priorities of projects ought to be leaning toward the long-term projects. It's important that we identify those projects that we're working with the various municipalities, the various mayors. We've already reached out to them to find out what is it that your priority is, how is it that the county can help. We know that Atlantic City, based on the other municipalities I work with and my partner that we look forward to working together on, Atlantic City gets probably the least amount of resources than any other place in the county. But that doesn't mean that there's not resources that's available to the city. We want to make sure that every dollar, every grant dollar that the county has can go alongside what the mayor's doing, the city of Atlantic City, and all the municipalities that I'll be representing, that I represent now, that are able to help with the projects going forward.
Thank you. Dr. Delsey-Moore, this question's for you. So in my personal life, I serve as a healthcare executive in a hospital, and one of the goals we're going after is life expectancy. We recognize that your zip code can determine how long you live. A goal of mine currently is to see Atlantic County at the top of a county health ranking based on our health outcomes. Any vision, mission, or plan to help Atlantic County become one of the top as it pertains to health outcomes, whether that's life expectancy, whether that's getting on top of our screenings, making sure that we have access to care. Could you speak to how you plan to help us in that journey of making Atlantic County the healthiest one?
Well, there's a lot to that question. One of my goals would be to improve the quality of life. And the quality of life here in Atlantic County stems in many different ways, and it can start with job programs, opportunities in cities where they may not have them, underrepresented populations, such as women-owned entrepreneurs, the ability to create jobs and job training programs. In terms of healthcare, Atlantic City itself is growing tremendously, as a thriving industry right here. I think education is really important, and one of the things I neglected to mention that I've studied educational policy. That's my doctorate's in educational leadership, educational policy. And, I think that it's really important that, first of all, people understand what the job of the commission is to do. Now, there's many perspectives of it, but to be able to improve the quality of life and life expectancy, it has many forms. The socioeconomic disparity is definitely an issue that I think we all should be concerned of, so we need to create opportunities for people and make sure we have programs in our schools that will fortify that. And another reason that I think it's so important is I want to be able to protect what's coming down the road in terms of the dismantling of the Department of Education, which was another driver for me being here tonight. I want to be able to protect New Jersey, Atlantic County, and make sure we have the budgets that we need to support our teachers and our students, because that creates a great inequality. And education is the very beginnings of creating a better quality of life, and hopefully in turn, life expectancy.
Awesome, thank you. And our last question before we close out is, as we said earlier, how are we going to evaluate the work that you all do at the county level? How do you evaluate yourselves, if elected, for the efficiency of the policies that you bring, the collaboration that comes with it? How can we evaluate it? How are you evaluating that effectiveness and all of the great things you're going to do?
Let me just try to take a stab at the question you had before that, because I think it's very important when it comes to healthcare. Our biggest issue, especially in Atlantic City, is access. We have a great hospital system that we still need to hold our hospital accountable and making sure we still have one of the highest infant mortality rate in the state in our area. We need to make sure that the healthcare system, that we have really a great deal of access to it. And you work with the hospital system, so you know it. And you know, we worked in the past through the churches, community health fairs. When COVID came, we probably registered more people to get the COVID vaccine than anybody, over 3,000 people. We need to make sure that we have access, but being on the county level, county health, there's money there for it. We needed to get the people out, get the access to health care. When it comes to accountability, the way that you know whether we hold ourselves accountable, if we're doing a good job, if we're representing you, if we are accessible to you, we're doing a good job. When we're representing your concerns, that's how we rate. Well, it doesn't matter whether I think I'm doing a good job. What matters is, do you think I'm doing a good job? Thank you.
To echo that, yes, you're serving the people. And in my positions in higher education, one of the things that I did a little different was to visit the graduate students where they were. I worked for executive MBA programs. And this was all over California and sometimes in other countries. So I truly believe in management and leadership by sharing information and having transparency in terms of sharing what I'm doing to move the organization forward, but also you have to be a good listener. And I want to be able to listen to those in other communities, because their needs may not be the same as someone in another area. And how do you know unless you were there to listen? I may not know all the answers, but I'm going to share this information and find the answers with the commission. But that's just my style, my background is to be available. In all of my work that I've done, I feel like I partner. I've always wanted to make sure, whether it's my children in school, I want to partner with the teachers, I want to partner with the administrators, or whether it's the job that I'm doing at Rowan University, teaching, I want to partner with the students to make them successful. They walk in my classroom and say, this is how you can be successful in here. And if you feel like you're struggling, then you need to let me know, and I will give you the tools, and I will help you understand how you can be successful and continue on and grow. And that's the same mentality I believe with our residents and our communities here in Atlantic County. That's what I would bring in terms of being able to have transparency and understanding what our communities need and bringing that back and representing that at the commission.
Well, thank you both. Can we give them a hand? So